Well, what we were talking about, Dave is not here today. He should be here by rights to comment on the passing of Barbara Walters.
He'd have stories that none of us would have.
Yes. One of the all-time greats, of course. Maybe the best interviewer of all time, And, everybody called her a trailblazer. That's really true. She was a trailblazer. It got into the business when women weren't really allowed in that business.
Not in hard news.
No. And, I saw some stuff about her right after she passed that when she first started in the news, like at the Today Show, she was allowed to write stories, but only for other women. The men wouldn't even read what she wrote.
Oh, really?
Yes, and she couldn't do hard news. And when she was teamed up with Harry Reasoner on the evening news, he didn't like that one bit. They didn't get along.
See, this is where we need Dave, because he'd have some Harry Reasoner tale.
Yeah. Reasoner.
Right, yeah. 80% of the audience doesn't never heard those two words together.
No, but Reasoner was an all-time news, but he's so man,
He's one of the old granite men.
Yes.
Back when television was black and white.
That's right.
The anchors were white dudes.
That's right. I spoke with Harry Reasoner once. He called Appalachian State University when I was there. He was the speaker for the commencement for the graduating class a couple of years before I graduated. And I was at the radio station. He had an interview to do with some news guy. And so the phone rang and I said, hello. And I said, WASU. He said, this is Harry Reasoner. I was like, get out of here.
Prove it. On 60 Minutes.
Come on. He's 60 Minutes, man. But he worked for a time with Barbara Walters, the first male-female co-host of the evening news.
And he despised it.
He hated it. He hated it because he thought it was a man's business. That's how it was.
All right, let's toss it to this broad.
That's right.
What are the hemlines looking like this year?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara Walters fought through that, and now, of course, there's a picture of her on her last day of The View, which she also created, and there was Katie Couric and Connie Chung and all the women of The View and all these different women who said, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. Oprah Winfrey said that. If it weren't for Barbara Walters, there'd be no Oprah Winfrey show.
And it became an institution, Kelly. You mentioned it already, the Barbara Walters interview. I mean, that became like the standard for television.
Incredible. One of the ones we've played numerous times is when she spoke with Sean Connery. And it's a low moment for Connery. He was talking about, he had been on record as saying it's okay to hit a woman. And she asked him about that.
You did an interview in which you said, it's not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist. It's better to do it with an open hand. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good.
You don't think it's bad?
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it. Yeah.
What would merit it?
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this, that they can't leave it alone. They want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again, and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right.
That was you hear that now and you're like, ooh.
I know, it's just cringe.
Just cringing, Man, and that was like late 80s, it wasn't like you were supposed to.
I thought we were here to talk about the Untouchables.
That's what it should be.
I'm making a movie with Junior, Harrison Ford.
Yeah, and Barbara Walters should go there on those interviews. I used to love those interviews. I thought she did
they were events.
Great job. Like before the Academy Awards every year, she'd have three huge stars.
It's one of the things I remember growing up.
Yep.
My mom always watching.
It's great because she was a phenomenal.
And when did she, quote unquote, retire from the biz? It's been a long time.
It says 2014 when she retired from The View. Mm-hmm. I think,
but she wasn't on every day, right?
No, but her very last shot on The View was in 2014. She interviewed every president. Let me get this right. She interviewed the presidents from the Nixons to the Obamas, and then also Trump. Trump as he was taking office.
Okay,
so that was only 2016 that she interviewed Trump, which is only 7 years ago now. And we hadn't seen her lately. Was it a dementia? Is that what? I don't know. Why?
I've not heard, but you're right. She'd not been in public in a while that I know of.
We've also played many times her interview with Matthew McConaughey when she talked to him about his grooming habits.
I read that you chew tobacco, you sleep naked, you own chickens and goats, and you haven't worn deodorant in 20 years.
Fact, 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 fact.
That's right. She could do it all.
All right.
In that same interview, he offered her a foot rub.
You want a foot rub?
I would love a foot rub, but I can't possibly do it in the middle of all of this. I'm embarrassed.
All right, we'll get you a foot rub here.
Later on, when no one's looking. It takes a lot to embarrass me, Matthew, let me tell you. But
So that's...
Are you footing?
That's right. The other thing she did, we've played this numerous times, when one of the ABC anchors went to Iraq and was injured, some people called it a rating strategy.
a ratings strategy?
She was very upset.
Very upset.
That's right. And I'll tell you what Dave did tell us almost exactly a year ago on the passing of Betty White. They offered Betty White the Today Show job, and she didn't want to move to New York. She was in Los Angeles with her husband, Alan Ludden. So she stayed in L.A., and so they offered the job to Barbara Walters. She was the first Today Show co-host, female. And so, look how the careers might have been different had Betty White taken the job. Incredible. She may be the best interviewer of all time. Amazing. Now, the other reporter that is in the news is this guy from Iowa. His name is Mark Woodley, Waterloo, Iowa. And Chris Demm said to me today, have you seen this snow reporter from Iowa? And I begrudgingly said, yes, I have. And he said, I love it. I love this guy's attitude. I said, I hate it. I hate it because I don't consider it professional. My wife and I were racked with COVID when this happened. And we were watching this. I said, are you seeing this guy? Look at this guy. And we both felt the same way, just in our rage,
Oh, she didn't like it either.
No, that's how we are. We are totally on the same page on this. The reporter is usually a sports guy, but they had such horrible blizzards coming through the Midwest.
Yeah,
this is right around Christmas.
Yeah, the side of the road duty.
Right. So they put him on side of the road.
And that job is the same regardless of where you are.
Yes.
Whether it's Buffalo or Chicago or even the Deep South, like Atlanta.
Yes.
Side of the road, you point your camera at your feet. If you can, you make a snowball. And you say, stay home. Those are the only rules.
Our own Dave Aiken has done this many times.
Yes.
He's been stationed at the same place a lot, which is, we know, is about 100 yards from his favorite watering hole.
He always did that.
He picks his spot. You know? So there he
just
is.
ambles across the street.
Yeah.
Stubs out the cig and goes 3, 2, 1.
That's right.
Well, I'm still at the same place I was before.
So this guy, Mark Woodley, has gone viral for how he treated. Now, again, he's normally a sports guy, and they put him on the side of the road. Here are a few of the things he said.
Mark, how you feeling out there?
Again, the same way I felt about 8 minutes ago when you asked me that same question.
Okay. All right. I had a huge,
Finally stripping away the veneer.
I had a huge problem with that. I had a huge problem with that.
All you want is veneer.
I want veneer. And I said, look at this. I said, look at the unprofessional.
You asked me that question 8 minutes ago.
Okay. But you never know.
Who's tuning in?
There's
You're
a
right.
new viewer. They preach that to you in radio and television. You can't, like, we're going to say Dave's got COVID 100 times today.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, we're supposed to, but you won't.
I forget. Sometimes I forget, and I don't say it. And a lot of times I think, well, if they don't hear Dave, what is it?
Dave okay? No.
Well, he wasn't there. Oh, yeah.
That's right. I forget to say it sometimes. Then he goes on again. He's just a sports guy. He's out in the middle of the storm.
I normally do sports. Everything is canceled here for the next couple of days. So what better time to ask the sports guy to come in about 5 hours normally earlier than he would normally wake up, go stand out in the wind and the snow and the cold and tell other people not to do the same. I didn't even realize that there was a 3:30 also in the morning until today.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I'll tell you what I equate this to. I equate this to the person checking out your items at Walmart, talking about how horrible it is to be there. I cannot stand it. Now, look, nobody likes to work all day, of course, but don't stand there and say, I've been here 6 hours and I got to get home. They're not letting me go. I got to work till 10 o'clock. I'm the customer. I don't need to see that. That's what he did the entire time. But his bosses love him for it because he went viral. And, so many people tuned into it. They loved him. They thought it was fun. As Chris Demm said, finally stripping away this veneer and telling us the truth.
It's absolutely fantastic, Ryan. I'm used to these evening shows that are only 30 minutes long, and generally on those shows, I'm inside. So this is a really long show. Tune in for the next couple hours to watch me progressively get crankier and crankier.
Snarky. Total snark. I couldn't believe it.
Or will he be, I know we have more clips, but will he be looked at as a pioneer? To finally, because what do people say when they watch the local news?
Same
no
old
one
stuff.
can be that happy.
It's not,
no one
it's
can be
not
that
real.
upbeat. It's not real.
Yeah.
I know. That is true. When you see that on the local
every
news,
local, and we're not picking on anybody. That's just the job, and they know it.
Yeah, they're
real
always
people, but they know that it's a role you have to play.
It's always so. Let's be helpful. Let's help the community.
It's not scripted. It's just an attitude.
Always.
Yeah. It's the veneer.
At one point, I went from radio into television, and I had a hard time with that because they would tell me
stuff you thought was mild, they said was over the edge,
way too far, and they would say you can't say stuff like that. It's like, why not? I mean, there are real people.
I can't say butthole. No,
you can't say butthole. You are not allowed. You can't say.
I can't believe you just said that. You said it.
I'm in your office.
You said it about Santa Claus.
Yes, it's colder than Santa's butthole here as we wait for the snowplows.
I can't believe you just did that.
I had a hard time. Making the adjustment.
Chafed.
I did.
They let you go.
They said, that's it, then. That's it. Here's more of Mark Woodley.
How do I get that Storm Chaser 7 duty? I feel like Clint got the better end of that deal. That thing's heated. The outdoors currently is not heated.
Clint was in
that's the
vehicle.
van.
Yeah, he's in the van in Storm Chaser 7. And Mark Woodley normally does sports. I want that job.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ryan, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is that I can still feel my face right now. The bad news is I kind of wish I couldn't.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife and I were screaming at this guy. We were like, why is this being embraced? This unprofessional.
Get him off.
What has this world become where unprofessionalism goes viral?
Can I go back to my regular job? I'm pretty sure, Ryan, that you guys added an extra hour to this show just because somebody likes torturing me, because compared to 2.5 hours ago, it is just getting colder and colder.
They did. They added an extra hour to it.
Yeah.
Because they kept on. Of course, it was snow.
Well, morning news programs are long, and when there's a big event, they go extra.
Till noon, I was checking out the CBS affiliate at 9 this week. And,
9?
Yeah, so at 9. I told Chris Demm I was up early watching, and I just sit there and watch and do the 9 o'clock thing, And it was really, really well done. I didn't. I'd click around and look at some of the others, but mostly I was on the CBS affiliate here, and one of them in particular, it was New Year's time. It must have been New Year's Day, and 3 folks were up there: Ben Briscoe and Ed Matthews, locally here. Now Ed's been on forever and ever, and he's a meteorologist. And he's known for being like out in the community and, doing all those kinds of things like you were just talking about with the local news. Now, Ben has not been here as long, just a few years, but they're standing there together and they're discussing New Year's resolutions, what you're going to do in
Perfect
this year.
television.
Of course. That's right. And they had been on the topic of helping others. That's what it was all about, was helping others. But I'll tell you, when I was watching it, and I just recorded this on my phone because what Ben Briscoe said to me really halts things. Ed was saying, look, I love to give, I love to help people, but this year I'm also going to be thinking about myself.
And I love helping people. I mean, that's just the way I am. I enjoy it. But I think this year I really want to focus a little bit more on pampering Ed.
Yeah,
now, maybe pampering, because you guys know me personally, okay? I can be very driven in my job. Everything, I'm OCD. Everything has to be perfect.
When was the last time you took a bubble bath?
All right. Right there.
What just happened?
Ed said, as you know, this year I'm pampering Ed. And Ben says, good call. And then a few seconds later, Ed's like, because, I'm OCD and I'm so driven. And then Ben says, when's the last time you took a bubble bath?
Well, when you put it like that.
And that brought everything to a screeching halt.
That's not something you normally hear.
No. Two grown men talking don't usually say, when's the last
The topic
time?
doesn't come up much.
When did you take a bubble bath? Well, Ed was taken back, and then he said, man, it's been a while.
Oh, Lord. Probably when I was a kid.
Do it. It's life-changing.
All right. Do it. Make this the year you're going to take a bubble bath.
The last time I was in a tub, I had hemorrhoids.
Right. You had a
That's
Sid's
right.
bath. Sid's bath.
Sits, not SIDS.
What did I say? Sid's?
Sits.
I thought it was Sid's.
Sits.
So you had a
Believe me.
sit bath. You both had them.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
hemorrhoids.
That's the only time a grown man should be in a tub.
And the water turned all pinkish because you had all that.
The first time it was the worst.
Yeah, when you hear the sizzle.
That's terrible. By the way,
There were no bubbles that day, I can tell you. There's no Mr. Bubble on the side.
I broke down and went ahead and put rubbing alcohol on my PRI
My God.
as a punishment to myself. I
Are
was
you,
like,
watching too much 1923?
Yeah.
Just cauterize it with alcohol.
I was going to say.
How would you get the edge of a knife blade hot and just cram it back?
Did you scream? Did you feel it?
It's terrible. It's awful.
Oh.
Terrible. Not
terrible.
recommended.
God, you're like those priests who lash themselves for sinning.
The penitence.
Yeah.
Yes. A listener told me to do it about a year ago, and I never did. And finally I said, you know what, I'm going to try this. I stumbled across the alcohol in the medicine cabinet, probably taking stuff for COVID. I said, all right, let me try it. And I did. It didn't. It hasn't.
If this was a scene from a movie, the shout would be the camera would go from like your house to your neighborhood to the country to the globe. Ever wider shots.
It was
as the screams reverberate.
Unbelievably painful. I tried it a few times, but it's just screaming.
Yeah.
And as everything else, it would help for a minute, and then the next day it'd be right.
Well, it
back.
probably just numbs it for a moment.
What it does.
Yeah,
That's what it does.
that is not recommended. I'm sure if you look at the bottle, it would say not for internal use.
No.
I'm sure you're right. But doesn't that just mean swallowing? Isn't that really what that is?
No, I think it means any of your tissues.
It's everything I read said don't do it, but one P1 listener said try it, and I did, and just to see, and maybe you're right.
What a Christmas.
Yeah, yeah.